Vasquez, Administrator of the Panama Canal. Dr. Vasquez, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good day, Lori. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So let's get right to it. How are the current water levels at the Panama Canal?
The current water levels are about 80 feet over sea level, and that's the minimum that we can operate will be 70 feet, so we have 1 foot spare. We are managing water resources and waiting for some rainfall to come. We anticipate that there is a high probability of a Niño coming over at the end of this year. So it's not only what we do now, but it's what we do for the next 18 months to make sure that we have the proper reliability and we communicate on time to our customers how they have to come and if there are any additional restrictions that will be imposed to vessels moving through the Panama Canal.
With the weather conditions where they are now, a lot of people are worried, are you going to have to further reduce the amount of how much containers can be placed on vessels so we can ensure safe passage?
Over the last few years, we have handled something in the neighborhood of about 7 million TEUs coming into the States and about 5 million TEUs coming with cargo from the United States. These are loaded, not empties. We take about 40% of that in merchandise value that is equivalent to somewhere about $0.3 trillion of merchandise value. So it's relevant. So to us, the U.S. is the main source and destination of traffic. And it represents about 73% when you take all commodities and containers. So to us, it's very relevant. And we keep communications with our customers and cargo owners in order to make sure that they know where we're standing. And if we have to give early warnings about redeploying vessels, to have that early warning so they can deliver on time and doesn't have to go into penalties or something else.
Are you seeing more smaller vessels going through the canal as a result of the less capacity that's being allowed on the vessels?
Even before we have water restrictions, there was a shift towards the smaller vessels. Maybe it was more due to congestions in large U.S. ports. So they were taking secondary ports for delivering cargoes. So they went to Mobile, Alabama, and other ports that have a smaller capacity, but they are closer to the distribution centers as well. Houston has restrictions on the access channel, and there are some other ports that are, with significant traffic coming from elsewhere. So as far as the Gulf is concerned, yes, we have seen some shift, but the major destinations on the East Coast, they remain on large vessels.
Is the authority thinking of implementing a low water surcharge so you can use those monies for any infrastructure improvements?
I think that it is probable that we will give a break to our customers given the water restriction. That is a force majeure element that it's not their responsibility, neither is ours. But I think that we have to give a break to the industry in order to assure that we remain the viable route in the long term.
For folks that are not aware of who you are, you're an economist and you're also the former CEO of Central America and the Caribbean for GE. Right. What is your outlook on inflation, given the water congestion that we're seeing, and of course, the climate change challenges that you're seeing personally at the Panama Canal and how it's having on the supply chain?
We believe that climate change is going to impose significant increase in costs and transportation costs in general, because resources were going to be allocated differently, because they are moving some of the production back closer to nearshoring to the consumption markets. To do so, you have to make significant investments, and probably the incremental cost in shifting that production into nearshoring is going to introduce higher costs. We have indicated to the market that from here to 2025, we have set up our rates. And probably the next stage or the next sources of pricing for the Panama Canal will be more associated either with carbon emissions, technology, and efficiency on transiting. So what we have to do is make a major announcement on what kind of vessels we want to transit the Panama Canal. Those vessels that can transit the Panama Canal in the most efficient way will be charged less compared to vessels that are more complicated to handle.
The Panama Canal is a major great gateway for East Coast trade. We've seen a big diversion, right, during COVID with the congestion from the West Coast to the East Coast. And now we're seeing that again. We have the labor strife on the West Coast. What are you seeing in terms of number of vessels? Are you hearing anything as it relates to any vessels diverting to go to the East Coast?
There are two windows for this market and for the remainder of the calendar year. One is the fall sales that go to school, coming back to school and the like. So there are some inventories that currently either are on board or are about to be on board some vessels. When you come to Christmas sales that will be deployed probably in the later part of August, September, if we have not resolved the water situation in the Panama Canal, we anticipate that some of the cargoes will take the Suez route to go to the east ports in the U.S.
Dr. Ricaurte Vasquez, thank you so much for joining us.